Hello, we're here at the AQS Quilt Week at Spring Paducah 2019, and I'm sitting here with Janet Stone, who won the Janome America Best of Show Award.
Yes.
All right, so tell me how that feels.
Yeah, I'm completely shocked, to say the least. Completely shocked and thrilled and honored. All of the above, yeah.
Well, this quilt is a little bit different
That's
from
what
your
I've
other
been
quilts.
told. Yeah.
So walk us through the process that you use when you make one of your quilts.
Well, my inspiration has to come first, and this one was inspired by a coverlet that I had seen on the internet somewhere, like from 1800s. There's a whole series of coverlets, woven coverlets from the 1800s, and I've always loved them. And I saw one probably about 4 or 5 years ago on the internet and saved a picture of it and thought, I could probably reinterpret that as a quilt. So I started out as far as designing. I had the inspiration, and then I pretty much designed the old-fashioned way on graph paper with pencil, just so I can get the layout and how big things are. But I never draw the whole thing out. I always say if I could actually design it from start to finish, I could finish it a lot faster. But I tend to start, I get more inspired by what I have, the space I have to fill, and so I sort of tend to design on the fly as far as the individual motifs are concerned.
And so do you draw out a fourth of it, or you draw the whole thing?
I pretty much draw the whole thing, like on 1/4-inch grid, so I kind of know exactly. Right, right. But then as I'm getting to the parts and pieces, and like this one has the alphabet in it, so I had to figure out how to get the whole alphabet on there and make it look, this is obviously symmetrical, so I had to figure out how to get those on there. And
now, we know that you make a lot of quilts that you put an alphabet on, but tell us what that process is that you're using, and what number is this quilt?
This is number 19 in the series. My plan is to do 26. This is 19, and I'm working on 20. So
that's really one for every letter of the alphabet?
Yes, that was the plan.
Okay.
Yep.
And you always put the alphabet and what else?
And a sheep.
At least one, right?
Seems to work out that way, yes.
And so do those sometimes just go where you have a hole, or do you plan
where
those go?
Some of them I plan to put sheep in there. The last quilt that I had, which actually won Best of Show in Lancaster just a little while ago, I didn't have a spot for it. It was sort of a different type of quilt, but my husband insisted I put a sheep on it. So it has a little tiny charm in one of the blocks on there. You can barely see it, but it's there. So, but yeah, usually I kind of try to plan to put them in somewhere.
All right, now you're ready to work in fabric. So how do you put the quilt together?
Well, the background is pieced, and as far as all the applique is concerned, I do raw edge applique with a fusible and blanket stitch it, and just go from there. I'm much better at applique than I am at piecing. So,
really?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, I can piece, big pieces, background and stuff, but as far as intricate piecing, I'm not really that good. So that's why I applique, and I feel like I have limited time. I work a full-time job, so I only quilt on weekends and evenings. And once I learned how to do raw edge applique, I'm like, that's the method for me, because it's a lot quicker than, to me, turned edge applique or hand needle turn applique.
Right.
So.
Okay, now I see that you have lots of different background pieces here.
Mm-hmm.
And so do you actually put together like a section and then like work on this circular design?
Yeah, I think on this one I did the center section. I didn't do the borders. The borders didn't come, together first. I did the center section, pieced all the vertical spots together. Yeah, and then laid out the design on that. I think I actually did actually in sections, like green, red, and green, and then and then added the centerpiece.
Okay.
Yeah.
And one of the things you're so well known for is the beautiful background quilting that you put behind that really is a counterfoil to the applique itself. And so how do you design that?
That's another thing that's difficult for me, is actually designing the quilting. I'm much better at doing the tops than I am quilting as far as designing the quilting. I'm okay if I have the design, I can quilt pretty well, but actually designing, because you have to think in layers, the quilting on top of the layer of the top. So
right.
It's, and this one, because it had such a traditional feel to it, I kind of wanted to keep real traditional with the sort of orange peel or whatever you call that design,
right.
And the feathers and stuff. So some things I do, like the little trees on the little stick trees on the borders, when I was doing those, I had an idea that I wanted to do the little feathers in between those. And so as I'm working on them, I kind of think what kind of motif I want to put in there. But I would never have a whole quilt design on a top before I got to that point.
Okay. Now, I just for other people, because one of the things that kind of sets your work apart for the quilting is how you didn't take this background all the way up to the frame for the letter. You made another frame that was quilted around that.
Yeah.
And so that's just a little tip for people, because it really sets that whole
It makes
letter
that
off.
stand out a little bit better,
Yes,
right? Yeah.
it sure does.
Yeah.
The other thing is that a lot of times people do not quilt on top of their applique. And I'm a real stickler for that when I'm judging, because I think that's going to make our quilts wear better. A lot of times on the old quilts, the quilts are coming apart because all they had was the applique around the outside edge.
Yeah.
And so you've done an outline inside all of these pieces. Even this one, which is small, you've quilted a vein right down the middle.
I think it just kind of adds to it. And I'll tell you another trick that I did on this quilt, because it's one thing that kind of drives me nuts. You'll see this little channel here, which was just a 1/4 inch channel, you know, that I quilted, and those tend to pucker. And I didn't want to quilt over it, so I actually took yarn and filled it with yarn.
Trapunto.
Yeah, well, sort of faux trapunto,
yeah,
I guess.
Well, actually, it is true.
Yeah, but
that's the
from
way
the
they
front
used
side,
to do it.
Oh, is it?
Oh,
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, so all the little channels and like these little here, and there's several spots on this around here. Those were all filled with yarn.
Well, now I know the edge of this quilt is just beautiful. So tell us how you did those points, because they are just pristine.
Well, I didn't want, strangely enough, this is not traditionally bound. It's actually sort of an applique binding. The points themselves, I didn't want like a regular prairie point. When you you make a square, you fold it over for the triangle, and then you fold it in for the points, and then you get 4 layers of fabric. And I didn't want all that bulk. And then of course they're going to be layered on top of each other, so there's 8 layers of fabric when you put them on top of the other. So I kind of cheated, and I did a fusible on the back of the fabric, just cut a rectangle and then folded them in, so there was only 2 layers of fabric, and it's got fusible in between. So they got really nice and flat, and when I fused everything down, and then I did the little stitching on the top of them. So, and then the edge of the quilt, I cut it straight, lined them all up, I just butted them right up against the edge of the quilt, and then appliqued that stripe sort of faux binding on top of them, and then of course faced them at the same time, so that it looks nice on the back and covers the back. So
well, it makes a beautiful edge, and so I wouldn't say that you cheated, because you just did it the Janet way.
I did it the lazy way, the easiest way I could think of.
Well, all right, and so now I know that people will want to know if they're going to get to see this quilt at the National Quilt Museum.
They are, yes, they are, yeah. I'm excited about that, and they'll take better care of it than I will. It'll get cat hair at my house, so.
So when one goes to the museum, do you make another one to replace it?
No. No.
No. You don't want to do this
I've got
one
more
twice.
ideas than to make it again, so no, we'll just keep it at this one.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
It's such a beautiful quilt, and I know everybody's going to enjoy getting to see it at the Quilt Museum for many years.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great.
And so we hope that you will enter your quilts, because you never know when you're going to sit in this
never
chair,
know.
do you? And we hope we'll see you soon at an AQS Quilt Week event.